let's move on to some other topics here. Now, this is something you might be interested in, Lana. There's something I learned about history over the last couple days that you may not know about.
Okay.
There's a gentleman going around the country who thinks he's the de facto president of the state of Florida, and he's actually running for president of the United States. His name is Ron DeSantis.
Oh my gosh, who's that?
Yeah, and Ron DeSantis has implemented some new education standards in the state of Florida. Those education standards that he has implemented is teaching slavery in Florida will show that enslaved people were able to parlay their skills they were forced to learn.
Parlay.
So, in other words, if you're a slave, you get to learn some trades here and there, and then you get to use that later on in life to benefit yourself. And as we all know from history, as soon as slavery ended, Black people were able to just go out and do anything they wanted to.
According to Ron DeSantis and his educational department, they could parlay being a blacksmith and just, after slavery, enslavement, they could just go out and get a job and get paid and make wages and buy a house and raise a whole happy family, because none of the civil rights movement happened.
No.
Nobody got lynched after slaves. Talking about
this is 2023. And we have a guy that is basically saying not only that this is his opinion, he wants this taught in Florida schools. And part of the reason is because he created a Stop Woke Act. I mean, imagine that this is what we are truly focusing on. So, on the Stop Woke Act. Instead of Stop Shooting Children Act or anything like that, we're stopping woke, which doesn't even have a real definition for the people who are fighting against it. There is a history to the word woke, but for what they are fighting, it is a totally different meaning. And now there are laws that pertain to this ridiculous word that they are using. So he was asked about it. And he defended it and said that they developed skills in which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. They're probably going to show that some folks eventually parlayed, being a blacksmith into doing something later in life. And he is not necessarily taking the blame for this. He's saying scholars put this together. I'm sure it's scholars that he may have handpicked or people that...
Right, he handpicked the educational department.
Right. These are scholars that are going to teach your children that that slavery was actually a good thing for Black people.
So I have a couple of things to say.
I'm shocked. I wouldn't think you would have anything to say on this subject.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, okay, one, what's the benefit? What were the skills that they learned? Like how to sleep with shackles, how to be raped with a smile, how to, ignore the cries and screams of your children as they're being torn from you. Like, what were the skills? Because that would imply that the Africans that you kidnapped had no skills when they came over. And we know that that is not true.
Might want to teach that in their curriculum, by the way.
What? Huh?
They may want to teach that in their curriculum,
exactly.
By the way. Too.
Just because it wasn't called blacksmithing, right? That didn't mean that that's what they were not doing already. They came with skills and you exploited the skills that they already have. I mean, there's like a story of have you ever heard of Uncle Nearest Green?
I have not.
Nathaniel Green. He was the first distiller in the United States, first Black distiller in the United States. He taught Jack was the whiskey guy. Jack Daniels. Yeah. He taught Jack Daniels a special distilling technique. So what Ron DeSantis would want to say is that Jack Daniels gave Uncle Nearest Nathan Nearest Green a job, but
An
what it was,
unbelievable opportunity that he would
right,
have
but
never
what it
otherwise had.
was in West Africa, they had this thing where they cleaned their food and things of that nature with charcoal. So that's the distilling technique that he brought to Jack Daniels and taught Jack Daniels, and that's what gives the Jack Daniels whiskey that smoky taste. He got it from him, and Jack Daniels made millions from this man. Nearest was paid, but pennies on the dollar
Hmm.
in comparison. So no, Ron DeSantis, they already had skills. And also they're reframing. They're trying to reframe enslavement. They're trying to
Hmm.
reframe this to make it seem, because this is what they did with the Native Americans, savages. Africans were savages. We tamed them. Christianity tamed
Mm.
them. They
Yeah.
were already savages and rapists. And that's what they did with the indigenous people. They did the same thing. And that,
Well, yeah,
mhm.
when you fast forward to today, and one of the reasons why this Stop Woke Act is part of the narrative or whatever it is that they don't want the white children in the classroom to feel guilty about how white people treated black people back in the day. Well, first of all, that tells you something. I mean, why would you feel guilty if they didn't treat them badly? That's number one. Second of all, I grew up, I went to school, we learned about slavery in school. I never once came out of the class and go, I'm so ashamed to be white. I might have thought that that was an awful thing, and I
Right,
really wish it was not part of our history, but I didn't feel guilty. I think if you feel guilty about hearing about slavery, that's on you, man. That's not, don't
right,
that there's something. Why would you? There's a difference between feeling guilty and having compassion,
right.
and I think they're kind of mixing up the two.
On purpose.
Yeah, on
Because
purpose,
they
hundred
know
percent.
better. No teacher is saying they were enslaved because of you, white kids. Like, come on. What about the black kids? Like, no one is talking about the black children in these classrooms. We keep talking about white discomfort. And I
Hmm.
think, didn't Ron DeSantis have this bill, white discomfort? What about the black children?
Yeah.
So because we're doing it again, right? Here's the cycle of racism, because we're saying that we're going to take care of the white kids because we have to, cuddle them and hold them. They can't learn this because it would make them uncomfortable. But then we're going to deny all of the black children their history because of, we got to cater to the white kids that aren't asking to be catered to. They're asking for the truth.
Well, that's a great point. First of all, the only ones that are doing it are maybe the parents who maybe side on a little bit of racism to a lot of
Right,
bit of racism.
right,
And you talk about the black children in those schools. I can't speak for this, and obviously you can speak to this better than I can, but black children in predominantly white schools already probably feel a little uncomfortable.
right,
So when
right,
you're doubling down on the discomfort
right,
of these children,
right.
they always talk about they're doing things for the children. They're doing things for the children. But, if you really were doing things for children, you'd understand that there may be a discomfort for more than just your white child.
Right, right. But that's always been the default. The default is we take care of the white children and white people first, and that's voila, racism.
That's just kind of a fact. So it is a fact.
Yeah.
According to the newly approved education guidelines in Florida, middle school teachers must now teach students about the various duties and trades performed by slaves: architectural work, painting, carpentry, tailoring, domestic service, blacksmithing, transportation. Benchmark clarification
Oh
listed in
my
the standards
God.
includes the note that teachers should also instruct. This is. The teacher should also instruct that enslaved people develop skills in some instances for their personal benefit. Then it goes on to say that they also want the children to know that acts of violence were perpetuated
Yeah,
against and by African
yeah,
Americans. They
yeah,
want to make sure that that is so,
yeah,
it's almost like you could say, see, it's not just white people, it's
yeah,
black people. And
yeah,
it's just, I
yeah.
mean,
We
I don't see how this
revolted.
benefits anybody.
We were so tired of
Yeah.
being lynched, or we were tired. We tried to escape being enslaved, and we like revolted and fought back. But that's
How
a bad
dare
thing.
they? Yeah, it's so ridiculous. I mean, that is just this guy's the governor of the United States, and not only is he enacting
The governor
stupid
of
shit,
Florida.
or
I
I'm sorry, the government of
thank
Florida. Yeah,
God
governor of Florida.
there's no governor of the United States.
Oof, you ain't kidding. Although, in a way, that's what he's trying to
Yeah,
be. But
yeah,
not only is he a disservice to Florida by doing that, one
yeah.
of his big things, again, by the way, I live in the state of Florida. I work in the mortgage industry, so I know some of the pain of the cost of insurance in this state. I also know the pain of the cost of rent in this state.
Right,
And I have not heard Ron DeSantis one time mention anything about the insurance. I have not heard him mention anything about the rent, but
right.
I have heard that he is very upset at Bud Light and that he may be suing them because he the suing them for dereliction to the shareholders of Anheuser-Busch.
Well,
That's what he's thinking about.
actually, he did mention insurance. He said one thing: farmers insurance just left your state,
They're
the
leaving in
marketplace,
droves here in the
and
state.
he actually said they left because they're woke. So
Oh,
he did.
so he just let them go.
Sorry, he just.
I listen. I'm not a violent guy. I really I want to throat punch anybody that says the word woke in a negative connotation. I really do. I cannot stand when I hear anybody say it because now I'm just hearing people say it
Right.
almost as a regular part of
Yep.
their anger, and they don't even. Again, most of them don't even. Donald Trump has said it. Ron DeSantis himself said it that most people don't have the right definition, but they do. What is their? If they say that's the definition, that's the definition, and I don't know. It's just it's unbelievable. But are you a? By the way, do you have anything else to say about that?
Oh, the Bud
Oh
Weiser.
no, just about the Ron DeSantis, the slavery.
um, I don't know. Like, dude, they've been teaching African American the history in Florida since 1994 or something like that. Like now, and just like Chris Christie said, it's which is really interesting. He didn't do this 4 years ago. He was
Yeah.
just like silent on all of this stuff, but all of a sudden now it's just like cruelty, racism, bigotry. Like it just, and it's not getting him anywhere, and he continues to do it. That's the crazy sick part. It's almost like he knows he's not getting ahead in the polls with it, but I also feel like he's starting to enjoy it.
Well, first of all, that's very strange if that is true. But if you look at polls will tell you that more people in America side with the positive side of
Right.
woke
Well, I
than they
mean,
do the
the polls
negative
with
side.
Trump, the polls with Trump. That's what I meant. Like he's not gaining with on Trump, and he's still continuing to be
But yeah, but
to the
what
far
I'm
right.
trying to say is that he's trying to be
Yeah,
president of the United
well,
States.
right.
So if you're
That's
going to
true.
do
Yeah,
that, why double down on something that people aren't really down with? That's what
right,
I'm just not
right,
really understanding.
right, right.
It just before I get to the next, wait, I got to bring this up right before I got on here. Since we're talking about race a little bit, there's a new poll that I saw on Yahoo today. I mean, I literally saw it just before I came out here.
Oh, is it good?
Oh,
Sorry.
this is awesome. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Trump voters say racism against white Americans is a bigger problem than racism against Black Americans. What do you think of that? Have you seen that where you live?
I haven't seen it, but I read it on Twitter.
Right. Yeah. Unbelievable. A survey of 1,638 US adults say that 62% of people, 62% of US adults said that racism against white Americans is bigger than racism against Black Americans. And 73% of them say that it's a big problem, which is kind of weird because if 62% say that racism against white people is a bigger problem than racism against Black, but 73% of them say a problem. Like there are some of them that just said, yeah, it's a problem. They're more racist, but it's really not that big of a deal. I don't get it.
And it's like, and if you go, Well, how? What does that mean? Well, because they get all the jobs and
Yeah,
they get the school spot. Like, what?
yeah,
Name
yeah,
a profession other than friggin' the NBA.
yeah.
It's like- and
It makes no sense. And like I said, I just first of all, polls anymore are
uh,
driving me insane. But something that when I see stuff like that, I just shake my head because it just what do you do anymore? What do you do with that stuff? But